Let's take a moment and talk about exactly how skilled of a fighter Wolverine is. Wolverine is the best there is at what he does, and what he does isn't always pretty. But there's no denying, with his wealth of experience, the longevity that he's been around, and the people he's learned from, Wolverine is one of the best and knowledgeable fighters in all of Marvel. But exactly how skilled is he, and where does he compare to his peers? Today we're going to be talking about that, but two quick disclaimers. First and foremost, unlike DC Comics, who goes into heavy detail about what a character knows, who they learn from, or where they learn from it, Marvel doesn't so much. They're a little bit more vague, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it does make mapping out what a character knows a little bit more difficult. Even with some characters that Wolverine has learned a lot from, as you'll see in this video, we don't know exactly what he has learned from them. On top of that, I know a lot of people use guidebooks to determine how skilled someone is, Wolverine consistently being at a 7. But I'm not a big proponent of using the guidebooks. Even though I can see that they fill in the gap that Marvel leaves there, I'm not going to be using this for this video. I'm only going to be using material that I have read from the comics themselves. So let's just get into it. Starting things off, let's talk about Ogun, which first made their appearance in issue number 2 of Kitty Pryde and Wolverine. But it's actually in issue number 4 that we find out that Ogun was a previous teacher or sensei to Wolverine. Wolverine says himself, "He was my sensei. Man taught me just about everything I know." This is a bit of a vague statement, but we can at least assume from this that Ogun laid down the foundation for much of Wolverine's skill, training, and knowledge as a fighter, whether it be in hand-to-hand combat, ninjutsu, or utilizing weaponry such as swords. In Wolverine Manifest Destiny, issue number 4, we see here Wolverine lists off a bunch of people that he's learned how to fight from. Wolverine goes on to say, from the steadiest cutthroats in the back alleys of Manipur to the most exalted combat priests of the Shirai throne world. From some of the most honorable samurai ever to pick up a sword to the most vicious bastards who ever grown claws and fangs. The greatest fighters of distant past and far-flung future, men and mutants, animals and aliens, and even a god or two. I learned from them all. And even among that, the old man in his dark little cave under Chinatown still ranks among the finest instructors I've ever had. And while this doesn't necessarily tell us who particularly Wolverine has learned from, or to what extent he was taught, this lists a wide variety and diverse variety of people who have taught him. In Excalibur, we find out while Wolverine is training Kitty Pryde that Wolverine knows a fighting style that he learned from Israel. We don't know the name of the fighting style, but it utilizes fast, impactful strikes to disable, destroy, or shatter certain points of an opponent. And he does this all in the time it takes to grab his cigar. Wolverine, issue number 17. We see here that Wolverine has been trained in the finer points of 18 different styles of Kung Fu. In X-Men, issue number 21, this is more of a supportive feat or statement in which Charles Xavier asks if Wolverine taught Psylocke ninjutsu, which of course implies that Wolverine is a master of ninjutsu. Now here's where we have to start utilizing fights or encounters with other martial artists to kind of measure Wolverine. Because like I said, there's not as many feats or statements as there would be with a character, say like Batman. In the New Avengers, issue number 15, we see Iron Fist and Wolverine having sparring match with each other. And we see Wolverine in control of the entire fight during this sparring match. It is worth noting that this is indeed a sparring match, the two of them not going all out, and even joking with each other on how much they're actually putting in. But the fact that Wolverine is able to match Iron Fist, who is generally ranked a 2 or 3 fighter in Marvel, is still impressive. In X-Men, issue number 62, here we have an earlier, younger Shang-Chi, and Wolverine's rolling up like a stud. The two of them get into a tussle with each other, with Wolverine gaining the upper hand. And of course, Storm having to come in to break up the fight. Of course, there's an argument to be made because Shang-Chi is not as developed of as a character in this era of Marvel Comics as he is now, but it's still important to note that Wolverine was able to gain the advantage on him. Captain America and Wolverine have fought each other numerous amount of times. In Captain America issue 404, an enraged, feral, bloodlusted Wolverine under mind control attacks Captain America, relentlessly coming after the Sentinel of Liberty. And during this fight, while not holding back, Wolverine was able to get the advantage over Captain America. The fight, however, was interrupted. In AVX, Round 3, we all know this encounter between Cap and Wolverine. Captain America starts off by slugging Wolverine in the face. Then the two of them go back and forth with each other, in which Wolverine is able to slice through Captain America's belly, disarming him from his shield and kicking him away. However, while Wolverine goes in for a lunging attack, Captain America grabs the shield and hits him in the back of the head, and the fight was interrupted with Wolverine being off-guarded. There's a lot to be said about Wolverine Origins issue number 4, and I'm not going to narrate the whole fight, but Captain America and Wolverine do go back and forth. We see various different forms and means of attack, even Wolverine using what seems to be pressure points or striking certain areas of weakness. But despite all this, there is context to this fight, because throughout the entirety of the fight, there was also Nuke in the background, and the fight started and stopped multiple times. However, it's worth noting, at the end of the fight, Wolverine was gaining the advantage. And Captain America has recognized Wolverine's skill. In Captain America Annual, Captain America even states, "I have to admit, Wolverine has great moves. His close quarter stunts are really engaging Tessus full attention." Wolverine has gone back and forth with Black Panther a couple times. In Contest of Champions 3, Wolverine and Black Panther fight each other. Captain America and Wolverine both utilizing their agility. And it wasn't until the Thing got involved did the fight come to an end. We see in Wolverine issue number 8, and there's heavy context to this fight, but the two of them do engage in a close combat fight, in which we find out that Wolverine actually relies heavily on his healing factor while fighting, relying on taking damage and then dishing it back out. Both of them got slices and cuts off each other. However, like I said, there is context to this fight, and the fight comes to an end. It is worth noting in Black Panther issue number 8, that Black Panther does charge at Wolverine and throws him pretty quickly at other people, ending the fight before it even starts.
Based off the information that we have about Wolverine, exactly how skilled is he, and where does he compare with other fighters of the Marvel Universe? Well, while the information is a bit vague, one could argue that Wolverine is one of, if not the most knowledgeable and experienced of the Marvel combatants. However, I don't think I can put Wolverine at number 1 in terms of the best fighter, and here's the reason why. First and foremost, Wolverine's primary form of fighting is utilizing his claws and his healing factor. His martial arts and combat skill, while there, are not his primary means of attacking, and in times that has caused Wolverine to get rusty. Second is that although he has good matchups against many of the top fighters in Marvel, they are just good. When fighting against Black Panther, he's never gotten a true victory, with Black Panther more often than not having the advantage. Captain America and him have had a couple back and forths, usually in Wolverine's favor, but of course there's always context to the fights. The Shang-Chi fight was an earlier version of Shang-Chi. The character has grown and developed a lot throughout the years, so that fight may not apply the same way as it would nowadays. And the Iron Fist fight was simply sparring. We don't know exactly how in-depth, in detail, that fight actually was. With that being said, despite his matchups and despite him being quote-unquote rusty sometimes, Wolverine's wealth of knowledge, experience, overall athleticism, his physicals, and what he brings to the table, I would argue that Wolverine is comfortably in the top 5 fighters in Marvel.